first speaker is going to be from the Dynamic Leadership, Level 3, Negotiate the Best Outcome. The project title is called Negotiation, a Key to Progressive Time and Collective Upliftment. That's going to be done by Khushee. 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 That's the name that I've written here. So Khushee, 5 to 7, correct?
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Nelson Mandela once said that discussions and negotiations are the greatest weapons we humans have to promote peace and development. I know that quote is quite pertinent to the present times where there is such rampant conflict globally. Now, I want to ask you all a question. How many of you have ever been involved in a negotiation where you have been required to put across a point that you believe needs to be addressed and that needs to be changed? Well, I didn't see many hands, but there have been quite a few times where I personally have been a part of negotiations, either directly or indirectly, that have eventually led to either successful or not so successful negotiations. And oftentimes we negotiate because we want to see change either within the structural framework of an institution we're involved in, or our workplaces, or any other formal or informal setting. Now, I personally have attained quite a few experiences that have allowed me to discern how we can successfully negotiate. And to me, the elusive key to negotiation is persuasion. Persuasion is the elusive key to collective and collaborative negotiation. Now, there are several forms of negotiations where one party wins, the other loses, where one wins, the other wins as well. And then there's collaborative negotiation, which I believe is the most efficient form of negotiation because it requires all parties to have an equal contribution and to reach a mutual agreement that assures the welfare of each party involved in the negotiation. Now, I'm going to take you through an experience I personally went through where I was part of both the direct and indirect negotiating table. When I was 16 years old, I came across a global movement that was directed towards ending the stigma on menstrual hygiene and menstrual awareness. I was quite inspired by this movement personally because I've witnessed a lot of inequities when it comes to women's health. And I thought of doing something on a grassroots level in the area I lived in. So I thought of creating an organization within my high school that would raise awareness on menstrual health, as well as help those women in women's shelters and homeless shelters attain more equitable access to menstrual resources. So now, creating an organization within my high school was no easy task because I had to come in contact with my assistant principal, as well as a few teachers who would serve as a supervisor for my organization. And little did I know, it involved a lot of negotiation to start an organization of your own from scratch. I approached the assistant principal, I approached my French teacher to serve as supervisors for my organization and grant me the permission to create an organization within my high school. Now, they were a little bit skeptical initially, but we eventually negotiated a way to create a plan that involved how the club would be funded, how it would run, and how we would get members involved within this cause. We created a plan that was mutually agreed upon, and we set a framework of how we would attain funds. I was responsible for getting sponsorships, so I did some research. And persuasion was a very vital aspect of this because persuasion is what drove my research. I did my research, I contacted organizations, I persuaded my assistant principal and my French teacher to seek sponsorship. And then I approached a women's group at Atonement Lutheran Church. Now, in this case, I was more at the indirect table of negotiation, and I was a witness to collaborative negotiation. When I went to the women's group at Atonement Lutheran Church, I promoted my cause over there. I talked and I persuaded them about the cause that I wanted to give life to and how I could serve those within my community, especially the women in homeless and women's shelters. Now, I witnessed the women at the women's group collaboratively negotiate how they would fund me, how they would sponsor me, and what their role would be in my organization. Now, to my pleasure, they reached a unanimous decision of funding $1,000 in sponsorship to my organization. If there's one thing I learned from this entire experience of mine, is that whether indirect or direct negotiation, persuasion is truly the elusive key to negotiation, because it allows you to put your thoughts in a succinct and coherent manner. It allows you to put your passion into your words and to create a reality out of your passion. And negotiation, when driven through persuasion from different parties involved in that negotiation, can truly create a diversified and mutual agreement. So coming back to what Mr. Mandela said, that negotiations and discussions are truly the greatest weapons we have to promote peace and development. In my case, collaborative negotiation fueled through persuasion really helped me move mountains. Thank you.
So as the General Evaluator, I'll make a few points about the meeting, but I'd like to introduce our first evaluator. He's a man who needs no introduction. Jim Sims. It's an opportunity to evaluate Khushee's speech. Her speech is from the Negotiate the Best Outcome project, and its purpose is to identify negotiation styles in engaging in mutually beneficial discussions and finding and building common ground. And the purpose of the project is to learn about different types of negotiation and strategies that can be used when negotiating. And as often is the case, she doesn't have a simple title. The title is Negotiation, a Key to Progressive Times and Collective Upliftment. And I think she attempts to do that every time she speaks. She wants to connect to the audience and uplift us. And I think that she accomplished that in this project. General comments: telling a story about leading a high school group that addressed menstrual awareness and women's health. That's pretty amazing to do that at the age of 16, to share with us how that negotiation worked, some of the opportunities, and you even snuck in the word of the day. I'm not even sure we gave you snaps for the fact that you added that to your speech. What you might want to work on, I believe, is gestures. I believe they maybe need to be higher, or perhaps if you come closer to the camera, your gestures will not be below the screen, but will be more visible to us. And we should remember that gestures are for our audience, not specifically for the speaker. I also noticed on the Zoom portion of your speech that you had a shadow. You may want to investigate, if you're going to do more speeches via Zoom, to maybe incorporate a circle light. Play a little bit with the lighting. You can get a good light for maybe 10 to 20 bucks, right, Don?
Yes.
So you might want to look into an investment of a circle light or two so that you're developing the whole background. I also would suggest that you share some statistics, because I think you may have mentioned this in a previous speech. It's a problem and a challenge even today. So maybe enhancing your speech with a few statistics might have helped to address it for us a little bit more. To challenge yourself, I suggest you color your stories. Give us some more details, like the name of the principal, the name of your friend's teacher. and maybe a little bit more information about the persuasion, that technique of how you persuaded a Lutheran church to give you $1,000 at the age of 16. I'm envious as a form of fundraising. On some of the evaluation aspects of your speech, eye contact, again, eye contact works a lot better if we're here in person. Gestures, your physical gestures are a tool and you use them well. Audience awareness, you engage the audience, you were asked a question right from the start. Your comfort level, I believe that you're always completely self-assured. You like to be here giving speeches, and we and I like hearing you. And interest, I think it was highly compelling, and I think it was something that many of us might have learned a little bit that we didn't know before. Thank you very much. I now return it to the General Evaluator.